This video is not a spoiler dump. It won't include any Silksong trailer footage, and I hope you'll also refrain from sharing details about the upcoming title in the comments below. It's also not a list of demands. Silksong is Team Cherry's game, and I respect that 100%. Rather, this is my spoiler-free contribution to the hype. The crazy ramblings of a passionate fan, not only about what's to come, but what I hope we're likely to see. Because if none of these ideas are present in Silksong, I wonder how good it's actually gonna be. I'm Holland, and these are 10 things we need in Silksong. Number 1. A living world beyond the player. One of the most underappreciated aspects of Hollow Knight's environmental design is how it makes you feel like you're part of the world without the world having to revolve around you. When you stumble across Cloth on her quest to find a worthy opponent, it doesn't feel like she was waiting for you. Rather, she's on her own journey and you just accidentally ran into one another. When you meet Sot in his various precarious situations, it feels like you're coming upon a scene that didn't need to involve you. And had you not done so, Sot would have definitely been screwed. Cornifer, Tiso, Quirrell, all of these characters can be found exploring Hallownest on their own. They make you feel like just another adventurer trying his luck in this vast, forgotten kingdom. And I think that's a really important feature to replicate in Silksong. Of course, Hornet is the main character, but Hollow Knight has already shown how this doesn't mean the world has to revolve around you. Being a nobody in the beginning might even be what makes the later parts feel so special once you manage to climb the ranks and finally put an end to the infection. You were just like all the other travelers, but through wit and willpower, you managed to overcome all obstacles and strive to the top. That's a great feeling. But there's another aspect to this. More than just coming upon lone wanderers, what truly makes the world feel alive for me are the different factions within it. I love this scene at the entrance to Deepnest, past the Mantis village. We never once see a Mantis warrior fighting off a dirt carver, but we don't need to. This picture says it all. The Mantis tribe is spending significant resources keeping the evil critters of Deepnest at bay. All that from this single frame. And that's just amazing environmental storytelling. Sadly, there aren't that many independent tribes remaining in Hallownest once we arrive. The residents of Dirtmouth feel a little disjointed, and the hive dwellers are more like the critters of Deepnest than the intelligent warriors of the Mantis tribe. So we're kind of left with only the implied interaction between the Mantis tribe and the defectors in Queen's Gardens, which is still a cool plotline if you can call it that. But there's so much more potential for clan-based interactions in Hollow Knight. I would love to see different factions trade with each other, make alliances, fight over territory. These remnants of the Forgotten Crossroads' long-lost inhabitants make me long for NPCs to fill it. I understand that the kingdom has fallen, but maybe a small group of survivors are still using the crossroads to transport market goods around the kingdom? Perhaps trading wartime supplies or food with the Mantis tribe. Doesn't that sound cool? But we don't have that in Hollow Knight, and that's okay. That is, however, where Silksong could fill the gap. I would love to see the kingdom of Farloom inhabited by sprawling factions, come upon bustling trade routes or deadly war zones. A world that you were a visitor in and not the main focus of. Number 2. Charms 2.0. Given that I'm actively avoiding spoilers, I'm not quite sure what trailers have already revealed about Silksong's upcoming charm system equivalent. And so for one, I'd ask you once again to keep the comment section completely spoiler free, while in regard to the name, I'll just be referring to them as charms, even if they're not actually going to be called that. In any case, I think a crucial thing to get right with Silksong is the charm system. Out of all the different customization systems in games that I've played, my favorite types are those found in games like Dead by Daylight, The Outlast Trials, and Hollow Knight. These systems are characterized by having simple but compelling perks that you can collect and equip, at the cost of being limited to a few at a time. I like the way Hollow Knight does this slightly better than the other systems because it enables a broader degree of balancing due to the way each upgrade has a different cost. In Dead by Daylight, every perk has to be about equally strong, while in Hollow Knight, you can balance a charm around its notch cost. This system is also great because it allows the game to reward you endlessly without necessarily making you more powerful. Collecting a new charm in Hollow Knight doesn't automatically make you stronger because every charm costs something to equip. What finding a charm does is simply allow you to experiment with new builds, trading one set of benefits for another. And that's an awesome pseudo-progression system, especially since every new charm is so intriguing to find the first time. That said, I'm curious whether we'll see a similar system in Silksong. I hope we will. I really like the one we currently have, and I think the only major change I'd make for Silksong would be to rebalance the charms more rigorously. It weakens the coolness factor of having a boatload of charms if some are clearly stronger than others. So let's hope Silksong follows in the footsteps of Hollow Knight with a simple but engaging customization system. Number 3. Varied combat playstyles. Talking about player customization, it's only right to also mention playstyles. But before that, let me just take a few seconds to politely ask you to consider subscribing if you haven't already. It helps the channel out more than you know, and hey, it's totally free, so what are you really doing other than helping a brother out? Thank you. Hollow Knight encourages a variety of different playstyles, primarily using your nail, primarily using your spells, boosting your focus ability, attacking from afar with Grubblefly's Elegy, and having your summons do the work. But those last two aren't very strongly encouraged, or at least the supporting charms are unmistakably flawed. And in regard to the focus build, in my opinion that starts to fall off towards the late game. So in reality, most people either tailor to their nail or their spells. And while Hollow Knight is still a wonderful game without much build variety, it's nonetheless an aspect that I personally miss quite a lot. So keep the nail and spell playstyles, but add a proper summoner build, or a ranged build. Maybe a wrath mechanic that allows you to build up damage while attacking or after taking damage. Or a tinkering playstyle where you spend a new resource to construct turrets and traps in the environment. Or a stealth feature that enables you to get sneaky hits on your opponents. Or an alchemist class that permits the brewing of potions with different helpful and harmful effects. Okay, I might have gone a little overboard there, but isn't that kind of inspiring? Wouldn't it be awesome for Silksong, through charms or otherwise, to encourage more than just 2 or 3 build options? I think it would, and I'd love to hear your ideas for fun combat mechanics besides just casting spells or swinging your needle. Number 4. Non-combat gameplay systems. While playing Hollow Knight, you're really only doing 3 things: fighting, platforming, or exploring, and the brunt of that gameplay consists of fighting, either enemies or bosses. But what if there were other, deeper gameplay systems besides those 3? For example, what if you could take up a profession such as mapmaking, herbalism, or resource trading, like non-combat character classes? You could spend time hunting for rare plants or minerals, or travel across the kingdom to buy and sell trade goods. That might really add to the hours of fun you could have in Silksong outside of combat, helping to establish Hornet as more than just a rabid warrior. Now, I have to be honest with you, not only is this not something we strictly need in Silksong, it could also easily become way too complicated and cluttered. Hollow Knight's strength is its combat, or at least I would say so, and I think that's totally fine. It's a solid identity. So if all of those intricate suggestions are maybe a bit too much, let me just say this. I hope Silksong at least has good platforming and exploration, just like its predecessor. And even if we don't get much more than that, just having those 2 solid non-combat systems will make Silksong feel that much more fun and engaging. Number 5. A Modernized Godhome. I've heard it said before that Godmaster received mixed results upon release, and while I can definitely agree that it is the most radical of all the updates, I think it's a stellar contribution to the base game. Hollow Knight's combat is just so fun, and that's why I love re-engaging with previous bosses through the Pantheons and Hall of Gods. That's also why I really hope Silksong will have a mode similar to Godhome, where you can fight previous bosses separately or in a row. But that's not all. If we see a Godhome equivalent in Silksong, I really hope it will incorporate some of the quality of life changes that players have long been asking for, including, but not limited to, a way to quickly re-enter fights after dying. Having to stand up after each failed attempt, especially on Radiant mode, can get really tiresome. Removing intro sequences on multiple consecutive attempts, especially potent against bosses like Radiance or Grim, which can take upwards of half a minute to re-engage with. A way to just exit out of a fight, perhaps using the pause menu. Currently, if you want to leave a boss battle in Godhome, you either have to quit all the way to the main menu first, or let the boss finish you off, which can take a while. You might also imagine brand new features like support for player-created pantheons, or even a roguelike mode that starts you off with nothing and allows you to collect charms, spells, and items as you defeat more and more bosses. Again, you can disregard those last two if you so please. I'm definitely not claiming that a roguelike mode is something we need in Silksong. That's just a fun thought. And regardless, whether or not any of these additional measures are implemented, I at least hope we get something similar to Godhome in Silksong. Number 6. All the little gems. What I'll say next could be considered a minor point, but I think that's a huge mistake. All the little gems refers to every subtle feature that made Hollow Knight into a truly great game, but which we sometimes tend to overlook or forget about. It's hard to pin down what exactly makes Hollow Knight so special, but at least to some extent, I think it's a bunch of smaller design decisions coming together to form a pleasantly fluid experience. So I'm talking about the seamless save/customization system in benches, the thematic and convenient fast travel system in stag stations, the dozens of modest but exciting exploratory rewards in Pale Ore, Mask Shards, Soul Vessels, World Building, and more. And as noted earlier, the wonderful simplicity of the customization system in Charms. While that's definitely not an exhaustive list, I think you get the point. And so I won't say much more than this. If you get the reference, you get it. Team Cherry, be careful not to kill your Joel. Remember what made the first game so special. Number 7. A link back to Hallownest. Speaking of the first game, I almost can't imagine Silksong isn't going to reference it in some way. Be it through us actually visiting Hallownest, meeting a familiar face, or just hearing the kingdom mentioned in dialogue. If you've ever seen or played the fan-made Pale Court expansion, there's an amazing set piece against the mighty Hegemol. In the background, you can spot traders and nobles walking around the sprawling pre-infected City of Tears. And I don't know, that just about blew me away when I first saw it. I guess it's a sense of wonder similar to what I mentioned earlier about being able to see civilizations flourish or trade or go to war. Something about the world living on without you. The same must be true for Hallownest while we're off playing as Hornet in another part of the world. Presumably, things are still happening in the Old Kingdom, and hearing about those things, or actually getting to see them in-game, would be a feature so cool I almost can't imagine Team Cherry won't include it. Number 8. Movement that lets you flow. If the little details and the world building aren't what make Hollow Knight great, it's definitely the combat, and by extension, the amazingly fluid and responsive movement. Hollow Knight's core movement is great, especially with downpogoing being available from the very beginning. And combining that with the Mothwing Cloak, Mantis Claw, and Monarch Wings shifts the combat from great to spectacular. I'm sure Hornet will have different abilities to the protagonist of the first game, and that's what kind of worries me. Well, not really, because I trust with my heart that Team Cherry know what they're doing. But recreating such amazing movement without merely copying the first title has got to be tough. Especially since, if anything, Hornet is a more agile character than the protagonist we're used to. However, I have faith in the developers, and I really hope they're able to recapture that feeling of flow they worked so well into the first game. Number 9. True vertical combat scenarios. Now we're getting to the really juicy stuff. These last 2 points, and especially the very last, are some of the things I'd most like to see implemented into Silksong. First, the original Hollow Knight obviously already has wonderful movement, but what it doesn't really have is true vertical combat where you're mostly moving up and down instead of left and right. We do kind of see this in the Colosseum of Fools, which is a great example of how fun this kind of combat can be. And I suppose No Eyes and Markoth are just as vertical as they are horizontal. But really, come on, if Markoth is your best example of a vertical boss, there's definitely room for improvement. Again, with Hornet's dexterous character, it would make a lot of sense to have an encounter that properly utilized the vertical dimension of the arena to challenge us. It would definitely feel like an obvious way to iterate on the Hollow Knight formula without going too overboard. Is vertical combat something we absolutely need? Well, in a sense, I think it is actually, but allow me to explain why through the next and final point. Number 10. An end to unfair boss design. So far, the list hasn't been in any specific order. But I'm making an exception for this final point because I really do think this is the most important of them all. If you know me, you'll know how critical I am of Hollow Knight's boss design. Not because I don't generally like it, quite the opposite. I don't know if I can name a game with better combat. Rather, it's because I'm convinced that most, if not all bosses, do things that betray great boss design. Some to a larger degree than others, obviously. You'll have the amazing Sisters of Battle who are the greatest joy to fight, but once in a while will spawn on top of you. Or the exciting Traitor Lord who can just walk into you with no proper telegraph, and so on. Well, in short, I hope Team Cherry have thought about what bosses they and their players like fighting the most, why some bosses are better than others, what each boss does right, and what they do wrong. And hopefully that will get us a lot more Mantis Lords, Grims and Broken Vessels, and a lot fewer Markoths and Grey Prince Sots. Now, I would say more on this issue because I have a lot to say actually, but that will come in a later video. I'm currently working on my magnum opus of Hollow Knight boss design analysis, a comprehensive theory of what makes Hollow Knight bosses truly fun and engaging and what ruins them. And if you liked this video, I'm convinced that you're gonna like that one too. So if you're watching this a while after it comes out, check the description for a link. And in either case, I'd highly encourage you to subscribe so you don't miss future content like this. I love seeing a humble community start to sprout in the comment section. But for now, I'm Holland and I'm so glad you stuck all the way through. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be here once Silksong drops, and especially if you're interested in this more analytical approach to Hollow Knight, I can't really see why you wouldn't subscribe right now. It helps out more than you know. And to reiterate, these proposals aren't demands, just a love letter from someone passionate about the franchise. I'd love to hear what features you think we need in Silksong, so feel free to let me know down in the comments below. As always, I'll try my very hardest to respond to each of you, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye!